We've been talking a lot this month about gathering, the intention of gathering, the benefit of gathering, the focus of gathering. And that leads very well, ironically, maybe predestinedly, into Palm Sunday, where the Jews are gathering for their Holy Week. And so, what we're going to be talking about today is Jesus coming to visit Jerusalem. And so what we're doing today, we're preparing for his visitation. If we go to the next slide, Jesus is coming to Jerusalem to prepare for the event, the reason he's been on earth, what he's been doing the last 33 years to get prepared for this event. And so, just to keep my theme going, why are we gathering? For the event, for the visitation. We have a visitor. Right there. Why are we gathering? Because we have a visitor. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look over the course of Holy Week here. And if we break down Holy Week, we have different events that are going on throughout this week. We're going to explore how each of those events God is using to help prepare for the event, the visitation, the reason they've been working here for 33 years on earth. And to set us off, before Jesus comes to Jerusalem, we have a miracle, right? Does anybody remember what miracle happened? There's several, but one, I heard it whispered. Confidence. Yes, very good. Very good. Lazarus was raised from the dead. Right? And we can read that on the next slide here. A large crowd of Jews learned that Jesus was there. They came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, who had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus. So ironically, we have two things going on. One, before Jesus even starts to enter Jerusalem, we have a resurrection. Maybe some foreshadow, right, of our event to come. But also, we have a miracle. We have a resurrection. And the priests are already saying, how do we re-kill this guy? Because it doesn't go along with the story we want to tell. So as Jesus is entering Jerusalem, we have some people that are super excited, super drawn in by this. Wow, this guy is back from the dead. And you have other people that are like, yeah, he's back from the dead. Not for long. And so that's the kind of framework we have going into Jerusalem. We have people very excited about this king. We have people very upset about this king. And so what do we have on Sunday? Palm Sunday, we have our triumphant entry. So I'll be bouncing a lot between different scriptures because there's a lot of overlap, right, between the four Gospels. But we'll be trying to keep in theme with the different days of this Holy Week, heading up to Easter Sunday. So we're going to start up. I read from Luke, the triumphant entry of Luke originally. Now we're going to go into Mark. And the triumphant entry in Mark is in chapter 11, if anyone cares to follow along. Now when they drew near to Jerusalem, from Bethphage and Bethany, on the Mount of Olives, Jesus said to his disciples, said to them, go into the village in front of you, and immediately as you enter, you'll find a colt tied, which no one has ever sat on. Tie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, why are you doing this? Say, the Lord has need of it, and will send it back here immediately. And they went away and found a colt tied to the door outside the street, and they untied it. Some of those standing there said, what are you doing untying this colt? And they told them what Jesus had said, and they let them go. And they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. And many spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread the leafy branches that they had cut from the fields. This is where the palms come in. And those who were before those followed were shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming of the kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest. So different accounts have palms, and some of them have coats, and some have both. I made a proposal to my pastor at my other church that we start calling it Coat Sunday instead of Palm Sunday. He didn't like that. He shut that down pretty quick. But I thought it was a pretty good idea. Because there's different, we've seen in different accounts that there are slightly different stories. And that's okay, because there's an emphasis on different parts. In this story you see in Mark, they talked about saying that they will turn the colt immediately, which I think is another foreshadow of it, to say we're not going to need this very long. And you also see more palms in this one. You see the Hosanna, like we sang today from this one. And all this goes into a triumphant entry. We're coming off the resurrection of Lazarus, and we're coming into the city of Jerusalem during a Jewish Holy Week. And what does this tell us about what Jesus is doing here? He's making a statement. He's saying there's going to be something really important going on this week. And as we talked about gathering, the point here, I guess I'm trying to emphasize, is that Jesus is really good at getting people together intentionally. When he gathers crowds, they always come away better because he's gathering them for a purpose. And so what's his point in this? He's starting his entry to start the event right. Because as soon as people know about an event, the event starts. It's kind of like when you're planning a vacation. When does the vacation start in your head? Yeah, as soon as you start thinking about it, right? Yeah. No? Oh. Okay. Well, good. You have better focus than I do. Yeah. When I start planning an event or a vacation, I'm distracted until I go. Right? And that's why, if you have kids, if you ever go to Disney World or any event like that, I have to be careful about when you tell them. Because then they start talking about it. Are we going to go to that? No, it's a year away. Next day. Are we going? No, it's a year minus 1 day away. Next day. So the same kind of way, as soon as we know an event is happening, unless you're really good at focusing, we start thinking about it. We start preparing for it. We start getting ready for it. And Jesus knows this. And so he makes his entry triumphant. Say, there's something really important going on here. Now on Monday, we have the groundwork. Holy Monday. And this day, Jesus is setting up the foundation of what it means to be a part of this event that's about to happen. Setting the groundwork, setting up some of the rules of what it means to be a kingdom of God, on who's invited, on what's going to happen. And this is the day where we see a couple events happen. The first one, which is, it's kind of a fun, self-contained story here. It's about a fig tree. Remember the fig tree? It doesn't have fruit. So it won't ever have fruit. Mark chapter 11 says, on the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry. He being Jesus. And seeing at a distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard it. So this is interesting to me, because it wasn't even the season for figs. Right? It says that. It says it wasn't even time for figs. And Jesus, I think, is using this as an opportunity to say, well, it's not about what you think time for. It's time right now. The next story is when Jesus clears the temple. And this has always been fascinating to me. There's a couple of different accounts of this. The first account we're going to look at is in John chapter 2. And it says, in making a whip of cords. So I underlined that because making a whip, I imagine, I've never done it, but I imagine it takes a while. So Jesus didn't just barge in and start knocking stuff over. He was sitting there for a while, making a whip. He was counting down. And the disciples are like, Jesus, what are you doing over there? He's like, I'm just making a whip, guys. Like, okay. And after making a whip of cords, he drove them out from the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and he poured out the coins and money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade. So the fig tree told us, Jesus says, it's my timetable, not yours. And in this story, Jesus is saying, it's about what our purpose of the church is, what our purpose of the temple is, what our purpose of the law is, not yours. Not for profit, but to bring people back to God. And the second account is in Matthew, and just slightly different, so I'm going to read that too. Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." And I had a mentor in college who he liked to emphasize the overturning of tables. Because what he liked to emphasize is that in a lot of the Jesus videos and the Jesus parables that we see him kind of as an authority, but not necessarily a chaos maker. And in this situation, he's making some chaos. He didn't come in and ask him to leave. He didn't pack him up for him and set him outside. He came over and flipped tables and said, "Get out." And what he's doing is he's setting down the rules. This is not what the temple is for. We don't have a lot of time. And then pretty soon after this, after he starts flipping over tables, we see a conversation with some priests. And when they entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came up to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" Jesus answered them, "I also will ask you one question. And if you tell me the answer, then I will tell you what authority I do these things." The baptism of John, from where did it come? From heaven or from man? And they discussed it among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say to us, 'Why then did you not believe me?' And if we say from man, we are afraid of the crowd, for they hold that John was a prophet." So they're trying to find the right answer. Not to be in the right vein, but to be right. You get the difference there? I tell my students a lot, stop trying to be right in terms of your grade, and start trying to be right in terms of finding the right solution. And what the priests here are doing is they're trying to be right. They're trying to get the A. How do I get my A? Well, it's a trick question. And they realize it's a trick question, but they still want their A. That's why they say, "We do not know." And Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." So once again, Jesus is using this opportunity to lay some foundation. If you're not willing to acknowledge by whose authority John was baptized, then I'm not going to answer your question. You don't get to be a part of this party. So what we're learning here in the Monday, in Holy Monday, that Jesus is setting down rules. He's setting up, this is my timetable. This is my Father's temple. This is the kind of community that we want to build. And if you're not willing to be a part of that, then this isn't the gathering for you. I'm not going to answer your question if you're not really interested. Because you just want to be right. You don't want the right answer. So Tuesday, we've had a triumphant entry. We've laid the foundation of what it means, what Jesus is going to be doing here. And then on Tuesday, he sets up the purpose of his visit. We know we're here. We have foundations in place. And then in John chapter 12, you see this story. Now among those who went up to worship at the feast were Greeks. So these came Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and asked, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." Philip went and told Andrew. Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. And Jesus answered them, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Whoever loves his life loses it, and whoever hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, he must follow me. And where I am, there will be my servant also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him." So we're setting the stage here. Why are we here? What's the purpose of this visit, Jesus? The purpose that he has to die. It's like that grain of wheat, so other things can grow. And if we are going to follow him, then we must likewise fulfill that purpose. And I want to make it very clear that this is why he came to earth. And he's been trying to tell them, right? If you remember, the disciples aren't always the brightest, 12 guys in the boat. And there are several times where he's like, this is what I'm doing here. And they're like, okay, but can me and my brother sit in your right and left hand? And he's like, we've been over this, guys. But this, he's trying to set it up one last time. This is why I came. This is why I'm here. This is the purpose of my visit. Then on Wednesday, what do we have? We have his entry. It's going to be a big event. We have the foundation. And we have a set-up purpose. And so on Wednesday, we're looking at how people start to react. We start to get to the heart of people. Now, when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster flask, a very expensive ointment, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at table. And when the disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, "What a waste." That hit home. Oh, okay, there you go. And I think my most fascinating thing here is that they were indignant. They weren't even upset or like, why is she doing that? They were indignant. They were let's just continue. For this they could have sold for a large sum and given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble this woman? For she has done a beautiful thing. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me." So on Tuesday, we were figuring out the purpose for this event. And some people got that purpose. That Jesus is going to do something very important. And other people didn't get the purpose of this gathering. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. So the disciples were concerned that was a waste. What she was doing was a waste of money, a waste of time. We could have been feeding the poor. What Jesus says here is that no, she's going to be remembered for this. Because the purpose of this gathering is this coming moment. And she will be remembered along with the gospel for this action. So in this moment, she took full appreciation of what Jesus is trying to do. And somewhat ironically, immediately after, and one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What would you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. So the next verse, after Jesus says, this woman's going to be remembered for the gospel because of her ointment, because of her dedication to me, because of her understanding of what I'm about to do, Jesus is like, I wonder if I can get some cash. So they're both remembered, but for very different things. And from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray him. So by setting up this event, by setting up our purpose, people started to reveal their hearts. By identifying why we're here, we have people that are saying, I know exactly what I'm doing here. And you have people that are saying, this is ridiculous, I want to get some cash. And so when you start to identify the purpose of your gathering, you start to see whether people align with that or not. You start to see if they appreciate that story. We saw at the very beginning that Lazarus had been raised from the dead, and some people were very excited about that. They wanted to come and see this Redeemer. And other people said, that doesn't go along with our story. Let's re-kill him and pretend this never happened. And so as we think about Wednesday, we can think about our hearts aligned with what God's trying to do. Now, Thursday, pretty famous, right? Everybody know what happened on Thursday? I'm sorry? The upper room. There was a lunch of some kind, maybe? Or supper? Yeah. One last supper, maybe? Now they were eating. Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took a cup. When he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood over the covenant, which is poured out for many of the forgiveness of sins." So, we have the Last Supper here. And the interesting thing that we're going to explore today, I'm sure you've all heard and seen and talked about the Last Supper. But I want to focus on Peter in this moment. Now, if you remember Peter is kind of he's a hothead. Right? He's usually well-intentioned. But he kind of does whatever he thinks is right in the moment, and then hope it works out. And so at the Last Supper, we also have this new covenant. We also have the washing of the disciples' feet. And in John chapter 13, we have this. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterwards you will understand." So he's trying to get Peter ready for his future role in the church. You don't get it yet, but you will get it. And Peter says, "Okay, go ahead." No, he doesn't. He says, Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said, "Lord, not my feet, but also my hands and my head." So we see Peter once again saying, "No, Jesus, I'm right." He's like, "Listen, just let me wash your feet." He's like, "Okay, you can wash everything. Peter, just let me wash your feet." Jesus said to him, "The one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." So Jesus is again trying to prepare the right people for the right time. He says, "Peter, you'll get this eventually, but right now, just let me wash your feet. I'm trying to prepare you for something." He says, "No." Like, "Peter, if you don't do this, then you're not going to be prepared." Like, "All right, then I'll take a bath." "Peter, you don't need a bath. Let me wash your feet." And then Peter learned his lesson and never makes another mistake again. No, there's more mistakes in the same day. So Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" This is from John chapter 13 still. And Jesus answered him, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow me afterwards." Like, "Peter, don't worry. Like, we'll prepare you. We're not ready for you yet. But we'll get there." Right? Because Peter is the what they'll build the church on? The rock. So he'll get there. But he's not there yet. And then Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." I can just imagine, with all the other stress, right? Jesus is sweating blood later this day. So he's under a lot of stress right now. I'm sure he really appreciates Peter's very engaging attitude. And Jesus said to him, "Will you lay down your life for me?" I imagine he gets a little sarcastic here, but that's because I'm a little sarcastic. I don't know if Jesus would get sarcastic, but he says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, for the rooster crows, you've denied me 3 times. Like, well, that's nice of you to say, Peter. It's not true. At least not yet. And then, after this, Peter didn't make any more mistakes. I'm kidding. He makes more. He took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch." So earlier, Peter had just said, "I will lay down my life for you." And Jesus says, I don't need you to lay down your life yet. I need you to stay here and pray. And Peter, I remember, he took a nap. And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And Peter learned his lesson and stayed. No, he didn't. He took another nap. Again, he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. But then he stayed. No, he fell asleep again. 3 times. Earlier that day, I will die for you, Jesus. 3 times. I'm just going to take a nap. Then, again, Jesus asked him to pray, right? Peter, please pray. Please stay up here and pray with me. I'm under a lot of stress right now. What happens next? Insider Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, put your sword into your sheath. Shall I not drink this cup that the Father has given me? So once again, Peter, stay here and pray. Oh, cut off a guy's ear? No, Peter, no. Don't cut off a guy's ear. Stay here and pray. But he began to invoke, so ultimately it ends with this day. They began to invoke a curse on himself and swear, I do not know this man by whom you speak. And immediately the rooster crowed a second time, and Peter remembered how Jesus said to him, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. So this was a very painful day for Peter. Again, I think well-intentioned, he was just not getting it right. And I think at this point, he finally started to get it. He finally started to get what Jesus was trying to do for him, trying to get him prepared, and he realizes at this moment he was not ready. He thought he was willing to die for Jesus, but he couldn't even claim that he knew him. And so what we saw on Thursday is getting the right people for the right time, for the right purpose. Peter was supposed to be there, but he was not ready to be the rock. And Jesus was using this time to get him ready to do that. Peter kept trying to jump ahead and be something he wasn't ready to be. At least not yet. But I think by the end of the day, he realized what Jesus was trying to prepare him for and trying to teach him. Friday, Good Friday, Jesus came and did what he was called to do. The purpose for his visit here on earth and to his trip to Jerusalem. And our reading comes from Luke 23. One of the criminals who were hanging railed at him, saying, Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. And he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. This is the day that Jesus came to do what he had been preparing to do all these years. This is the purpose for his visit, not just to Jerusalem, but to earth. And then he said to him, Truly, I say to you today, you'll be with me in paradise. And the last part I want to emphasize here is found in Mark 15. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, It is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Then we get to the Mark part. And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, Truly, this man was the Son of God. This was the purpose for his visit. When he said it is finished, the event had happened. And people knew it. The centurion that was putting him on the cross and overseeing his execution knew it. The temple of God with the ripped curtain knew it. What does this tell us about the event, the visitation of Jesus? That he had the authority to make it happen. Remember, if you remember when he was praying in the garden, he said, if it's possible, take this cup away from me. I really would rather not do this. But I understand this is why I'm here. This is the point of this visitation. This is the point of this event. And I'm going to make sure it happens. And everything leading up to now was the fulfillment of that purpose. So we get to Saturday. And we get the exit. Right? Jesus is executed. He's in a tomb. We have Dark Saturday. The thing about to keep in mind for any event is the exit, the ending of the event, is just as important as the beginning of the event. So I won't ruin the end for you, because that's next Sunday. But what I can tell you is that this visit started with the resurrection. And I'm going to give you a little foreshadow. It ends with 1-2. And the exit, the ending of this week, is even better than the beginning. So as you think about this week, and we think about getting ready for Resurrection Sunday, we're going to think about these questions. Are you ready for this exit? Yeah? Good to hear. Are you ready for this visit? As we talked about at the beginning, the visit starts as soon as you know it's going to happen. The event starts as soon as you start thinking about it. And the exit, just as important, if not more important, than the entrance. So as you think about gathering, you think about this visitation this week, are you ready?